Right, hello there everybody. Adam Clery here from the Adam Clery Football Channel, and Alexander Isak to Liverpool. I've had enough. Now, cards completely on the table. If and when Alexander Isak looks like he's going to Liverpool, you will be getting a How Does Alexander Isak Fit in Liverpool System video from me with a smile on my face. But we're not there yet. And instead, where we are is in the middle of the messiest club-to-club transfer I have ever seen, right? Liverpool want Alexander Isak. Alexander Isak wants to go to Liverpool, and Newcastle are even pretty willing sellers, like under two pretty reasonable criteria. Like, can they get a replacement lined up, and will they meet his valuation? Now, I think those two criteria will soften as the window goes, but for right now, that's where we are. So nothing's actually happening right now, and yet not a single day is going by without another seemingly contradictory report being leaked by either one of the clubs or Isak's camp directly. So I wanted to do this video because by showing you what is going on with the Isak transfer, I think it's a really perfect example of how news functions during a transfer window now. So A, should be great for my sanity, and B, you might actually learn something. Right, so even more cards on the table. Yes, I am a Newcastle United fan, and yes, in an ideal world, Alexander Isak would not leave my football club. He would love playing there and stay forever and ever. However, I'm not in the business of getting pretend angry on camera for views or having really bad faith opinions for money, so I can absolutely understand a 25-year-old who thinks he can treble his wages and compete for the very top honours in his industry being in a rush to move from Newcastle to Liverpool. I don't actually begrudge him any of this. And if you are sitting there thinking, but Adam, it's not about the fact he wants to move, it's the way he's gone about it, then this is the video for you. Because every single thing you know about this or any other transfer is a carefully managed battlefield of PR where all the information comes directly from one of three sources. The actual player himself does virtually nothing. They are not reading your tweets. They are completely insulated from public opinion. They just want to play football, ideally for the club that's going to pay them the most amount of money. And as for the clubs, they want to be seen to have won every particular transfer, either by going out and getting the player they wanted to get, or by being seen to drive a really hard bargain, being unwilling sellers, but getting a good deal in the process. And thus, what is really important to remember at all times, if you dare to go on the internet or pick up a newspaper, is that every single thing you see reported in these transfer stories is true. Or to crowbar in a Star Wars reference here, it's true from a certain point of view.
From a certain point of view.
Because, I don't know if you've noticed this, but journalism in the traditional sense has kind of been on its arse for 20 or 30 years now. One of the few elements of it that still makes any money is football. There is a near 365-day news cycle. You can throw reaction and opinion into the most boring of actual events. Transfer rumours swirl all year round, and every summer you get this fucking circus of information where the clubs themselves are actually desperate for some good publicity. Thus, this is the one time of the year when they will very happily brief any journalist they've got good relationships with about the latest exciting saga to the transfer story that all their readers are interested in. Thus, because it is of interest to those readers, it winds up getting published, and it's come from the only credible source it possibly could have. It's just that nobody has the time or the inclination to start pulling it apart. Case in point, just this week, one day, all the Newcastle-based press are reporting that progress has been made on potentially reintegrating Isak into the squad and to be open to working his way back into the club if a transfer isn't going to happen. And just to spell out how that works, that information will almost certainly have come from Newcastle United directly, who, having met with the player, feel that that is a real possibility. But the thing is, that is not the reason why you want that story out in the public domain. You do it because it makes Newcastle's negotiating position with both Liverpool and the clubs they're trying to buy replacements from that much stronger. Right? Well, you know, if you guys aren't going to stump up the 150 million, then he's actually, you know, he might be pretty happy to stay. And if you guys are going to drive too hard a bargain on like Visser or Jackson or Watkins, then, you know, we're not in as desperate a position as you might think. Now, those clubs may or may not believe that, and they might have information that may or may not contradict it. But when your back's against the wall, it's about the smartest thing you can do. But then, literally the very next day, apparently Alexander Isak has told Newcastle that he will never play for the club again, even if he isn't sold. Which, of course, immediately takes Newcastle's position, which has been strengthened by yesterday's story, and then weakens it considerably. Because you can't hang on to a £150 million player and let him rot in the reserves when there's like a £110, £120 million offer just on the table there, can you? And again, just to spell that out for you, that information probably doesn't come from Liverpool because they would know the innermost workings of the player's mind, but it can come from his representatives instead, who, seeing that his stance may be softening a little bit at the training ground, but knowing that he does actually really want the move, will advise him that he needs to take the strongest possible line. Well, I mean, yeah, obviously I want the really big, exciting move, but if it's, you know, it's not going to happen, I might as well start to build some bridges. No. You'll never get it that way. Leave it to us. We'll put a story out for you. So just as quickly the narrative becomes that Newcastle need to accept they're in a losing position, stop trying to get the full whack, just take what's available, move and counter move.
Moves and counter moves.
But crucially, all reported in very good faith by the journalists involved and, to the best of their knowledge, completely true, which it all probably was. Like, one thing working in journalism teaches you repeatedly is that two things can absolutely be true, even if they seem to contradict themselves. The world is not so boring that that is not a possibility. So just to bring that all back together and draw a nice, neat line for you, and bear in mind, I am speculating as much as anybody in this situation. What's the truth of the matter? Well, Isak does clearly desperately want to leave Newcastle, but is probably open to doing his best for them if that doesn't happen. But his camp, determined to force the move, will have told him that's the wrong stance to take, and for now, the line is, you will never play again. But the problem with the truth is in the middle somewhere is that that's not particularly explosive. It's not very exciting. It's never going to get a lot of eyeballs on it. So rather than bring the whole thing together and come out with the far less interesting narrative, you just put those updates out there as soon as you get them, before somebody else does. So what I'm trying to tell you here, and yes, we will represent this with a lovely looking graph, right, is the reason behind you hearing anything to do with a player's transfer, right? Whether it's from Club A or Club B or the player's representatives or just the reporters themselves, right? The reason that information gets to you is money. They're doing it because of money. It's literally just about money. They want to make more money. How the money works for the clubs is obvious. The sellers want the maximum amount and the buyers want to get a good deal. You do not need me to explain that side of it to you. But the other two are, yeah. Alexander Isak's management company, Universal 22, does not have, in the context of him as a client, what you consider to be a balanced roster. Modric is obviously an enormous talent, but at 39 is not going to get them a hugely lucrative transfer deal, despite him being linked to one pretty much every single summer for the last 6 years. No comment from me there. And Emi Martinez is obviously a brilliant goalkeeper, but valued at around 20 or 30 million. Now, don't get me wrong, I certainly wouldn't mind getting my percentage of that deal, but certainly it is nothing compared to a potential £150 million 25-year-old, so you might get another one out of him, centre forward. The constant stream of information given out to the press about this transfer is so aggressively designed to play both Newcastle and Liverpool. To weaken the bargaining position of his current club so they feel that a sale is inevitable, but also to keep the buying club on the hook and interested in the move, despite the clear difference in valuation and the fact that clearly Liverpool did not set out this summer with the single aim of bringing in Alexander Isak. It's an opportunistic buy for them because they think he's available. And the reason they think that is because they're told he is. Like, just to put that in even simpler terms, right? Liverpool do not need Alexander Isak by any stretch of the imagination, but he is such an unbelievable player in such a small market. Like, there's hardly any good forwards. If you think he's desperate to come to you and you have got the money, you do just sort of need to make that happen. And you have read 100 times this summer that Isak is desperate to go to Liverpool. He only wants Liverpool. He's going on strike. He's never playing for Newcastle United again. And all it's led to is a solitary bid of 110 million. And Liverpool apparently are very happy to go back to the table and improve that if Newcastle United open the door, which both teams apparently very cordially currently consider closed.
About to close.
You're a bunch of vandals, and I call the police, but I want to deal with you myself.
And they're
I will
closed.
deal with you.
He's gone.
And you would think, if a player was so desperate to leave, why not force the club's hand and hand in a formal transfer request? And again, the reason for that is money. Most clubs now have clauses written into your contract that handing in a transfer request, i.e. forcing that club to sell you, taking the power out of their hands, means you can forfeit your loyalty bonus, you can forfeit a number of fees, you can forfeit your share of what's outstanding on your contract, which is usually supposed to be covered by the transfer fee. And with 3 years left to go on said contract, it is not an exaggeration to say that handing in a transfer request could legitimately cost him, or more accurately, his team, millions, if not tens of millions of pounds here. And in all likelihood, they will have asked Liverpool, well, if we do that, will you reimburse us for the money we lose? And Liverpool will quite likely have said, no, get to fuck. So that is, in all probability, why they haven't done it. But what about the final piece to this puzzle, right? Which is, why do we know all this? Why does every tiny, minute, little detail of this story get released seemingly on a daily basis before either getting debunked, denied, or just contradicted within about 24 hours? Well, it's probably not going to shock you at this point. Also because of money. And people with anonymous Twitter accounts with like 9 followers will tell you that everything is a conspiracy against their club specifically, and that these journalists, right, they've either got profound biases that they are driven by, or they are paid directly by the clubs to report certain things. And I can reveal exclusively to you now that having spent the last 2 years going from low-key believing all that to working in the industry and sharing a desk with some of these people, they do not give a shit about your club or any club, really, or largely even football outside of work. This is just their job. Now, I don't know if you have noticed how much worse this all seems to have gotten, specifically in the last 2 years, right? Because prior to like 2023, yeah, deadline day was a little bit OTT, but by and large, it was all just sort of rumors and whispers, and then finally, here we go. But now it's insane. And the reason for that, sort of what this is all about. In 2023, Twitter formally introduced monetization of accounts. They pay you fractions of pennies for your engagements and your interactions. And so for 99.999999999% of all users, it's not really realistic as a revenue stream. But if you can push your views and your interactions on the platform into the millions, into the tens of millions, into the hundreds of millions, all of a sudden that can start to make you 4, 5, 6 figures a month. Transfer season is to verified journalists on Twitter what a sunny World Cup is to any bars that have a telly in them. If seemingly explosive info comes their way, it is actively against their self-interest if they don't publish that. And again, don't get me wrong, they do not make this shit up. They would not have the jobs they have, be in the positions they are in, have the audiences they've got, unless they were legit and trusted and usually quite reliable. But to receive a story from an agent or a manager or a player or a club and not just run with it is of no interest to them. The sooner you realize that most journalists now, even the ones with the really top jobs, are just running a business the same way that the clubs are, the same way that the agents are, and that by engaging with this news cycle, replying to it, sharing it, having an emotional reaction to it one way or another, you are the product, the more sense all of this starts to make. Oh yes, and also that somewhere between like 20 and 60% of all accounts on social media are now not actually people. They're bots. Bots specifically designed to agitate you further so that you will keep engaging with the stuff it is you would normally engage with, whether that's sport or politics or whatever. They buzz around you and keep you on the website for longer so they keep your eyeballs on the ads. That's obviously also a bit of a factor. So yes, just to round all this up, I do think Alexander Isak will go to Liverpool, and when he does, the best of luck to him is all I have to say, because I will be forming my opinion completely based on what I've seen him do in a black and white shirt, not what I read on the internet. And I advise you to do so too. So yes, just to wrap up this extended editorial about how the internet is completely evil and single-handedly responsible for the crumbling fabric of our delicate society, why not subscribe to us here on ACFC, where we do far more normal videos about tactics and players and match previews and match reviews. And yes, if Isak does go to Liverpool, we will have one here about him, and you don't want to miss that, so clicky. And of course, you can get me across all the social medias at Adam Clery, Clery, because I should have the strength, shouldn't I, to give all of those up, but I just don't. Not yet, none of us do, so I will be over there, and I will be being fun, and hopefully I'll see you there as well. So until next time, that's how football works in a transfer window. That's what the press is right now. Hope you've learned something. Goodbye.